From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. We start with news from Peru. A court has sentenced a former governor to 8 years in prison for accepting millions in bribes from Brazilian construction company Odebrecht. Former governor of Ancash, Cesar Alvarez, allegedly received $2.6 million from Odebrecht for the construction of a highway in 2011. As part of his sentence, he is barred from running for public office for 8 years. He's the first politician to be sentenced in the Odebrecht case in Peru. And Peru loses more than $5 billion per year due to corruption. Schools, hospitals, and other public services often face multiple budget cuts. Let's find out more.
In Santo Domingo de los Olleros, in the south of Lima, 8,000 Peruvians live without access to drinking water or electricity. Their only school operates inside containers. When people approach authorities asking for anything, the answer is always, there is no budget.
We live a little far away, and authorities don't come here. They don't give themselves the time to visit our homes. They go where the money is, and that's where they focus the most. So, who care about us? Nobody. They're not interested in us. There are 8,000 people, but unfortunately nobody cares.
The people of Vista Alegre, in the district of Chorrillos, have waited for years for government funds. In spite of having 15,000 inhabitants, their only available healthcare center has only one doctor working 1 6-hour shift.
There's only one doctor. It's not enough. Look at how many people there are here. Our children get sick and there's no one to treat them.
As the government denies resources to these areas, Peru loses more than $5 billion a year due to corruption, according to the Comptroller's Office. As such, various urgent projects are often put aside and forgotten.
We should at least have a food program for children up to 3 years old. The retirement program should be extended to all citizens over 65 years old. Every senior citizen should be getting a pension.
The cost of corruption equals 10% of yearly public spending, a figure that could easily allow the government to double the salaries of all public workers in the health and education sectors.
Brazil's Supreme Court has put off until a later session a decision on an habeas corpus petition that could have seen the former president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, freed from prison. A group of Lula supporters demonstrated outside the court in Brasilia as a majority of judges voted individually in favor of the habeas corpus petition. This was on behalf of all those who were automatically imprisoned after the rejection of their second appeal, and could apply to Lula and several thousand other prisoners. But the Supreme Court agreed to take a final decision at a plenary session yet to be arranged. The Supreme Court has also agreed to hear a separate habeas corpus petition dealing specifically with the bias on the part of the judges in Lula's case on June 25th. This follows the revelations made on Monday of a conspiracy to block Lula from taking part in last year's elections by the Justice Minister and then Judge Sergio Moro.
The material just released fully supports what we have always said as the defense team. The new documents show again that Judge Sergio Moro was not an impartial actor. He actually coordinated the accusations against the former president and then passed judgment on the case that he himself had built.
Fear has seized Venezuelan migrants in the north of Brazil after a Venezuelan and a Brazilian were killed in a fight. 128 migrants asked for protection and have returned to Venezuela with the help of the government. But what lies behind this migration? Here's the first in our series of reports by our correspondent, Madeline Garcia.
Migration in Brazil, the border with Venezuela between Roraima and the Great Savannah. The Brazilian army works hand in hand with UNHCR, the UN agency for the refugees. Here they give instructions to the Venezuelans.
First, we need to stamp the permit here with the police and the passport.
then the vaccination, and then we go across the streets where the white tents are, where you get all the paperwork, the CPF, the refugee protocol, which means that if you have all the papers, you have access to all the social services and the health, education, all the same rights as the Brazilians. You can work, study, get a scholarship, apply for healthcare, just like anyone else.
Without a doubt, the Brazilian dream. In 2 hours, you get to Boa Vista, the capital city of Roraima. But the dream was left behind. The reality is something else.
This is a lie. People can't believe in that there's work, that they're going to get a job. It's not like that. Look how we live here. Take the camera so that you can see the puddle of water. I'm a taxi driver. I even have a car in Venezuela. And look how I am here.
There are improvised settlements where they live in subhuman conditions. This is not what they imagine, nor is this the protection they say that UNHCR promised when it signed a request for refugee status, on the condition they said they were victims of political persecution in Venezuela.
I had to say that I was running away from the government. Otherwise, they wouldn't let you pass. They wouldn't give you the permit.
They went from being skilled workers and professionals to being beggars. In the backyard of a church, every day they are served food. They feel deceived.
We crossed the border legally, so if the government let people pass, why doesn't it help us now? Are they letting people in just to have them on the street? Why would they let us cross if they don't intend to help us at all?
There are 10 UNHCR shelters in the city of Roraima for those who allegedly come fleeing from Venezuela, but everyone can get in.
They're using what's happening in Venezuela so that people come as migrants, and then nothing. Look how many resources the UN and other countries are sending, and the people are still on the streets. They're not doing anything. We are in need, and they tell you it's all fine, but it's the opposite.
Nearby, they put up tents and hope for an opportunity. It was in one of these, in La Floresta Garden, that the murdered Venezuelan was living. He got into a fight, a Brazilian was killed, and he got lynched. Fear has taken over the place.
I'm afraid of the same thing happening to me. You feel unsafe here.
That morning, some men on motorbikes shot at them. They didn't care about the children or about anything else. A few hours later, the repatriation began.
There have been a lot of attacks. They are trying to kill us, to burn us, because of others. They want us to pay, but it shouldn't be like that.
The repatriation went on for 2 days. The rain didn't matter, only returning to Venezuela. Now they have a chance to start again.
Coming up, a groundbreaking project for amputees in the Caribbean. Don't go away.
Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Earth. Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Thousands of Chilean teachers marched in Valparaiso on Tuesday as part of the national strike in defense of public education. According to leaders of the march, the protests are geared towards improving the quality of public education in Chile, since the current government of Sebastián Piñera is in favor of privatizing the sector. Various social movements have also joined this group.
This is a very unjust fight because the government has all the political and economic power. And we are the teachers. We are honest people. I think people understand the importance of our fight. We have had lots of support in the streets, and not only from teachers, but also from various social movements.
This is not a march for better pay, but for quality education. For example, in infrastructure. There are some schools where there are rats, where the students don't have books to study, where teachers have not been paid for over 4 years. And recently, they have made the study of history, physical education, and art optional.
The president of Bolivia's Chamber of Commerce, Rolando Kempf, has described the meetings between his country and Paraguay as historic. The meetings are set to take place on Tuesday and Wednesday in La Paz, where both countries seek to establish agreements on integration in areas such as energy, the economy, and bilateral relations between the CAN and Mercosur. In April 2018, representatives of both countries created the first Chamber of Commerce and Integration to strengthen commercial relations and promote the Paraguay-Paraná waterway. Mexico has set up a special commission to analyze and address migration flows. The commission, led by Foreign Minister Marcelo Ebrard, seeks to create a system of regional immigration management. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador says Mexico is prepared to work with other countries in identifying the underlying causes of recent migration flows.
The most effective and human way to deal with the migratory phenomenon in any part of the world is to address the actual causes of migration. This will not be solved by the use of force.
Uganda has confirmed its first case of Ebola as the outbreak in the neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo continues. A 5-year-old Congolese boy was tested positive for Ebola after arriving in Uganda last Sunday. His family members are currently being tested for the disease as well.
The Ministry of Health, the World Organization, and the Center for Disease Control have dispatched a rapid response team to Kasese to support the teams who are on the ground to continue with the various activities, including contact tracing and case management. The Ministry of Health, WHO and CDC will undertake ring vaccination of contacts to the case and other non-vaccinated frontline health workers, as well as other workers beginning 14th June 2019.
Protest leaders have agreed to suspend a civil disobedience campaign in Sudan and resume negotiations with the military on the creation of a transitional sovereign council. Ethiopia is mediating the process and said the military council has agreed to release political prisoners as a gesture of goodwill. Protest leaders launched a general strike across the country on Sunday after a bloody crackdown on demonstrators left at least 61 people dead on June 3rd.
The two sides have also agreed to refrain from inflammatory statements and de-escalate tensions. The Transitional Military Council has agreed to take confidence-building measures, including the release of political prisoners. The FFC, on its part, has agreed to call off the civil disobedience on this day of Tuesday, June 11, 2019.
We now turn to the Caribbean. Amputees in St. Lucia and the Eastern Caribbean can now benefit from access to affordable prosthetic limbs manufactured in the island. It's a project by the National Council for Persons with Disabilities and comes amid what officials describe as alarming amputation statistics due to diabetes. Our correspondent in St. Lucia, Alison Kentish, has more.
Francis Felix lost his leg in a motorcycle accident. He now spends his days manufacturing prosthetic limbs at a small workshop housed in the office of St. Lucia's National Council of and for Persons with Disabilities. The workshop is the first of its kind for the Eastern Caribbean and provides modern and affordable prosthetics to amputees, many of whom lost limbs to illness or accidents. Felix took Telesur on a tour of the facility and showed us how the small team gives amputees a second chance to walk and smile again.
I start by folding, wrapping it all around. You mustn't put it too tight. You must have it in a safe angle. If it is dry there right now, I'll pull this one off, that we may have the impression that we need. I pull it off this way. This is called the powder of Paris or molding powder. So I mix it in water, with water, mix it properly, then I put back in here. Checks. I put it back in here, and I left it to get hard. It have to get hard. When it get hard, then I cut it off. I cut off, so which means I'll have this.
The next stage involves melting the plastic that will go over the mold of the limb, resulting in what is known as a check socket, which is fitted onto the client once more to ensure that it is comfortable. The team grinds the edges of the socket and uses the original mold for laminating. The end result of a long process is an artificial limb and a new lease on life. After the final fit, team members help the amputee to learn to stand tall and walk strong.
When you walk, try to get your foot ahead of the bad ones. Yeah. Send your walker up front enough that you may, right. We're going to this direction of the parallel bar. Yeah, take your time and be patient.
21-year-old Danelle Frederick lost his right leg when he was just 16 as a result of a massive tumor. He says this life-changing ordeal taught him that in a wink of an eye, anyone can become disabled. For him, the center provides a new lease on life for amputees.
It feels great because now I can do the things I couldn't have done. I could even go to work, I can run, I can climb trees, I can do many different things. But I have to say, like, thanks to FTPD, I'm glad that I'm grateful for a leg and I could move forward with that.
Artificial limbs were until recently beyond the financial reach of most people who have had amputations. With this program, amputees can now purchase an artificial limb for less than $4,000 US.
It is a sad reality that persons with disabilities are among the poorest of the population. In St. Lucia especially, we have high incidence of diabetes, so the number of amputations taking place is alarming, especially of lower limbs. So we have many poor persons who are losing their legs as a result of diabetes and who need rehabilitation, who desire to walk again.
For the technicians who are also amputees, it is rewarding work to see the joy on someone's face when they get a chance to walk again.
I like to help people because if I have a leg, I can't walk. I want the people to walk too.
The project began with a small grant from the Australian government and has attracted support from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and the Rotary Club of Grosley. Partnerships built on helping people to walk again. Alison Kentish, Telesur, St. Lucia.
After the break, Nepal presents its first ever drag show. Stay with us.
The life is full of moments. Moments of fight. Moments of hope. Moments that transcend. Moments that you can live in. Telesur documentaries. Sundays. Only on Telesur.
Thank you for joining us again. The United States Department of Justice has formally demanded the extradition of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange from the United Kingdom. The U.S. delivered an extradition request to the British authorities last Thursday. It complies with a treaty between the two countries stating that the request must be issued within 60 days of Assange's detention, which took place on April 11th. The U.S. alleges crimes of conspiracy, espionage, and a further 16 charges, which could total 175 years in prison for Assange. And lawyers for Assange, as well as his supporters, have expressed grave concern over his health in recent days. Our correspondent, Pablo Navarrete, spoke with his father, John Shipton, as he was on his way to visit his son.
I think the first hearing is on the 14th, just a couple of days away. But there have now been 9 years of preliminary investigation in Sweden, with 4 prosecutors, 2 interviews, and it took 8 years to put a man on the moon. So you can see that the pursuit of Julian is a persecution, is not a prosecution. Not even the most convicted person would believe that it's anything to do with justice or anything other than the persecution of Julian at the behest of the United States.
The British government claims that no one is beyond the law and that it's acting. That British justice is merely doing, its role. What would you say about that?
Well, the expression, I guess, that no one's beyond the law doesn't include the United Kingdom, which has broken every single convention that it signed to as far as asylum seekers, asylees, dragging Julian from the embassy, refusal to allow an asylee to travel over their land to take up the asylum in Ecuador, refusal to acknowledge the working group on arbitrary detentions report that Julian was in fact arbitrarily detained, refusing to acknowledge the rapporteur on torture, the rapporteur on torture, Mesler's report. Every convention and law the UK breaks at will.
Julian Assange's father also spoke about the actions of the current government of Ecuador and how they differ from the previous one.
Well, Rafael Correa was a champ. And Lenin Moreno was voted in by the Ecuadorian people under the auspices that Rafael had created. After becoming president of Ecuador, Lenin Moreno showed his true colours and sold Julian to the United States for a loan from the IMF. That's about the standard of Lenin Moreno's government.
Now let's look at other stories from around the world.
Italy has passed an emergency decree that limits the entry of ships into its territory waters. Under the decree, boats that violate international laws or ignore official orders will be fined more than $51,000. This move is aimed at curbing the activity of migrant rescuing ships operated by charities. The cabinet approved the measures 2 weeks ago after the Anti-Immigrant League won in the European parliamentary elections.
In questo decreto si prevede
With this decree, we will see the confiscation of boats, which repeatedly do not respect conventions and Article 1 relating to the exclusion of entry into territorial waters. Fines of up to $51,000 for the captains and the owners of the boats who do not follow the rules of the Italian Coast Guard, the Finance Police and port authorities. There is also the possibility to pay undercover officers to help in the fight against human traffickers outside Italian borders, and the possibility to intercept communications communications between traffickers and their accomplices.
South African Olympic champion Caster Semenya cruised a victory at the meeting race in Paris, France. This is her first race since filing an appeal against the IAF rules on restricting testosterone levels in for female runners. Caster has appealed this decision to the Switzerland's Federal Supreme Court after losing her case at the Court of Arbitration for Sports last year.
I'm going to focus on myself. I'm not anyone. If they have a problem with me, I don't have a problem with them. So that's their business, not worry, not mine. So as an athlete, you focus on delivering. I came here to deliver. I delivered, so that will be my worry to perform. So yeah.
Nepal has had its first ever drag show as it stands as one of South Asia's most progressive countries when it comes to homosexuality and transgender rights. The first ever Nepalese LGBT-friendly restaurant was picked to applaud the duet performances, with many of its audience wearing glittering makeup and vibrant outfits. In 2007, landmark reforms in Nepal prohibited discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and recognized gay rights.
And with that, we end our news brief. You can find all of our stories by checking our website at telesurenglish.net. And be sure to follow us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.